Managing the Cash Crunch, Part 2. Back in 2008, 9, 10, I lost over $100,000, mostly of other people's money, and it was an incredibly humbling experience. 10 years ago, after all the money was lost, as you probably have heard, I developed a stress-related illness called erythema nodosum, and I couldn't walk for 3 months. Coming out of that, I now had a new problem. I had to figure out how to pay back $100,000. And one of the first steps I took was getting really candid with myself about my role in everything. Looking back, I realized I was inexperienced. I realized that I had unrealistic expectations and that I was generally really underskilled. There's an expression that Warren Buffett has, and he says, when the tide goes out, you find out who's been swimming naked. I was definitely swimming naked. So, something that I did to really kind of own my responsibility over things was to write a letter to myself. And I knew that I would do the best possible job if I held myself publicly accountable. So I actually rented the private room at a restaurant and invited 20 entrepreneurs or so to come hear me share my lessons that I'd gained from the collapse. And it was the night before the presentation when I started to write the letter. I think I started writing at about 8 or 9 p.m. and I thought, within an hour I'd be able to write this letter to myself about my role in everything and candidly my shortcomings. So I wrote the first draft. It took me maybe an hour and a half. And I looked at it and I said, I'm not quite taking responsibility yet for my role in things. So I crumpled up the papers, threw it off to the side. I wrote another draft, crumpled it off, threw it off to the side, and another draft, and another draft, and another draft. 9 p.m. became 10, became 11, 12 a.m., 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I kept writing and rewriting and rewriting. The presentation was set to start at 12:30, and I needed to leave my home by noon to be there on time. At 11:50 a.m., like 10 minutes before I had to leave, I had run from my computer, final draft, finally written. So yes, this is 14 hours of writing back to back all through the night, didn't sleep a single minute, threw on a suit, got in my car, and drove as quickly as I could to the restaurant. So I arrived just in time for the start of networking. And there was about, I think, 15, 20 minutes of networking. And I was setting up all the presentation equipment. And 2 minutes before I was about to start my speech, really sharing of myself in all the ways that I had fallen short in taking other people's money and investing it, the door swings open and 2 people walk in. It was 2 of the people who'd invested with me. One of them had invested around $50,000 and the other had invested, I think it was $5,000 or $10,000. And through the whole process, I had been on the phone with them over the previous many months, letting them know when things weren't going well and letting them know where things stood. So we had a relationship. I'll tell you though that it's something completely different to be in the same room with someone that you feel like you've really disappointed. And it's a whole other galaxy of fear when you're about to share directly eyeball to eyeball with them the ways that I screwed up. The freeze frame unfroze. They walked in. They sat in towards the back. I took the microphone and I started by sharing with everyone that I had a letter to read called "I'm the Biggest Fool Around." And in this letter, I acknowledge all the shortcomings that I had. And it was excruciating to do all that. And at the same time, it was incredibly liberating. I didn't break down in tears, but I sure felt like this wave of emotion when I finished. And as soon as I finished, there was like probably 3 seconds of complete silence. You could have heard a pin drop. And all of a sudden, the first person started clapping. and the next person, the next person, and within moments, the whole room had stood up with a standing ovation. It almost took me to my knees. As the event wrapped up, folks were filing out, and the two investors that had shown up, they didn't really know each other, so it's not like they spoke ahead of time or anything. But each of them at their own time came up to the front and pulled me to the side, and each of them had a one-on-one conversation with me. And both conversations were almost identical. The conversation went something like this. Tim, I really believed in you before I invested with you. Now that everything has fallen apart and you don't really have a plan to bring the money back, and I've heard what you have to say about all the ways that you fell short, now I really believe in you. I thought these people were going to tell me they're going to sue me and that they were sending the police after me or something like I feared the worst, and what ended up happening is they gave me more support than I'd ever received. And it was in that moment that it really, really secured for me the idea that managing relationships, especially in a time of crisis, is absolutely crucial. It's crucial to speak up early and to speak up often and to be candid about what it is you know to be true. And generally speaking, people will be pretty cooperative with you when you are very honest with them. And I share this not to come across as righteous, like I'm some fantastic person. I think I share it just because this applies so much in this exact moment of navigating a cash crunch, where we need to have candid conversations, not just with ourselves, but also with our loved ones. Obviously, be appropriate with how you share that, depending on the ages of the different people that you're speaking with. I mean being candid with our teammates. I mean being candid with our investors. I mean being candid with our friends and with ourselves. So as we move through this cash crunch, I encourage you to ask yourself, how do I want to be remembered when this is all wrapped up and we're on the other side? And when I'm on the other side, who is it that I want around me, and what do I want them saying about me? And the more that you can hold that front and center, the more likely you are to make the right decision and have the right conversation, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's something that you're dreading. I know for myself, I've already had a couple conversations that I was dreading in this particular crisis. And for me, it was not comfortable, and yet I don't think it ever can be comfortable, if you know what I mean, because we're talking to real human beings here. And I think the lesson is, it's okay if it's uncomfortable. It's a sign that you care, and it's important to proceed anyways. So I'm cheering you on as we move our ways through this crisis and this cash crunch. And I sincerely hope that whatever it is that you're dealing with, you can deal with it in a courageous way so that you can really set the scene for this moment in time to be a launch pad, actually. And that whatever's waiting for us on the other side of this particular crisis is actually better than anything we've ever had before. I'll see you in the next video.